Oh my god, we've got some fantastic news, Company of Heroes fans, because it seems as though we are now being greeted with the December Balance Preview version 1.0. This is very exciting. Out of the blue, spontaneous news. It means Kyle, Relic and the boys were being very busy behind the scenes and have just sprung this ambush on us out of nowhere. It's awesome because a lot of people were starting to think this game is being dead, it's quite stagnant, and this is a massive kick up the arse to anybody that was thinking those things. Me personally, I was beginning to think, right, tournaments in the future are going to have set rules, going to have to introduce mods maybe do Civil War kind of mirror match things to spice things up, but no, this is going to give an entirely new breath of life to this game, and this is very exciting, especially for a game that's 5 years old now. This is my first reading of these notes. I'm going to pick out things that look interesting on first glance, talk about them in detail. My credentials, I've always been a big part of this community since 2012. I've ran lots of tournaments, done a lot of casting all of the best players playing in the most competitive conditions. So I have a good understanding of the least path of resistance and how this game can be played in the most overpowered way possible, so I have a good understanding of it. So I'm not the best person to give you advice on what to think, but I'm a pretty damn good person. If there's anything you disagree with, please tell me, put it in the comments of this YouTube video. If you interpret anything differently, I really want to hear about it. I want to spark as much debate as possible, and I want to see the forums alight, and that's what this is going to happen anyway, but whatever I can do to contribute. So the goals: tune underused, overvalued commanders. Oh, thank you. We need more diversity. Tone down the effectiveness of some of the Axis elite heavy tanks to make them less spammable and dominant. I like that as long as they add a little bit more, variety and access for the Axis to compete in those late game situations, and I'm sure they will. Tone down the squad wiping effectiveness of some of the most overperforming off-map abilities. That makes sense, and that already starts to show a balanced kind of outlook, hopefully. Adjust some of the meta-dominating units, primarily Soviets. So they're talking about Dushkas and Penals here. That's the primary thing they're talking about. Improve squad strategic diversity and quality of life by making minor adjustments. They always do that, and it's been lovely to see. Primary focus: 2 or 3 underused commanders, make them better. Continue the work of the full FBP, the full balance patch. Great, and it's the most highly rated changes from the FBP. It's not the the stuff that nobody was really interested in. It's the real big stuff. Secondary focus: adjustments to the dominating Soviet meta. They've already mentioned this. Lend-Lease, Penals. Maxims need buffing, Penals need nerfing, conscripts need not buffing too much, but making more useful and more durable throughout a game, or more useful in a late game scenario. Because at the moment they just, when you come up against Vet 5 folks, they're redundant by the late game. Adjustments to the heavy tanks that are currently overperforming. Panther, okay, yeah, I can see it. Elephant, Jagdtiger. Whatever. Adjustments to Vet 4 and 5 of OKW units that trade too cost effectively. Yeah, I can see that. Late game for team games is a little bit skewed towards OKW. Adjustments for OKW and UKF forward retreat points. It does need looking at. But as I say, I'm more interested in this kind of stuff because this affects 1v1 and like the top player super meta that I'm more interested in. But I will add my thoughts to the more team game orientated changes. General, okay. So the Blitzkrieg and Overdrive War Speed / Step on it, it's got 4 different names. These movement boosts will now cease when the vehicle receives an engine critical. Makes sense, I like that. Forward retreat points, of course, now require a company command post, so you can't spam them in the early game, it seems. You have to have gotten some relevant tech. And these are all just obvious changes to me. This is just helping the game have a more flow to it, so you can't spam these things as quickly. OKW Battle Group unable to reinforce if cut off from friendly territory. This is stuff that was in the FPP, and this is just making more sense strategically. Everything has to have a counterpoint in this game. Everything has to have counterplay. You can't just have one-clicks. You can't just have things that just work and can't be countered. And that's how the game is starting to be seen by the developers. After much pushing from the community, it seems we're getting that culture, and I really am a fan of that. 2-minute cooldowns, etc. Sandbags and ghosting. This is a big point. For those that don't know, this is, of course, building a sandbag. It used to be terrible. You could half build them, they'd be invincible, or they'd last a really long time, and they really never seemed to want to change them. Then finally, last year, they started to allow the changes, and now they finally seem to be fully made better. All sandbags standardised to 240 health and 35 armour. That's very good for just generalization and making things more understandable to every player. Ost-tier sandbags build time from 60 to 45. Thank God. It was so long seeing them get built and they weren't utilized very often. Units that have been in combat in the past 3 seconds will cause all unfinished enemy ghost bags within a 4-meter radius to immediately deconstruct. Thank God. So if the unit's now in combat, the sandbags disappear. This is very important. In GCS, you saw interesting plays where the engineers, or the sappers primarily, for Brits I saw it most often, would trap a tank in using ghost bags and trap it in and then allow it to be countered. Or trap a mortar, and I saw it against the Brit mortar actually. Or no, it was against the trench, that was it, a trench. They trapped the trench and so the infantry couldn't escape and then they finished them off. It was cool to me, because I like this exploitative stuff, as long as the developers are active in fixing it eventually. I kind of like seeing it the first time in a competitive game. It's innovative, as long as it's not specifically banned, of course. Repair speeds. This looks good. We need this to happen because OKW are way too fast right now. OKW, for those that don't know, are like ninjas with a blowtorch. Like, tanks repaired. Let's get back on the field, boys. And that is overpowered. And I kind of understand why it was there originally. It was to allow OKW, who had this Swiss Army knife unit, the Stern Pioneer, to not have to be repairing all the time. But they've got the Mechanised Regiment headquarters for that, so it didn't really make sense overall. And I'm glad it's now from 3 to 2. That must be health points per second. I don't exactly know what it means, but it's definitely a third less effective now. And then 0 repair speed, reduced from 2 to 1.6 for Echelons and Royal Engineers. Bonus decreased from 1. But at least the Stern Pioneer's got a nerf. That's all I care about. Squad behaviour. What is squad behaviour? Squad behaviour is the AI of how the infantry reacts when you're not controlling them. So the infantry in Co 1 used to like jump out from behind cover just because it was like kind of realistic to have this living, breathing mechanism. And it wasn't controllable by the player. The player, in fact, had to recontrol the unit and reconfigure them behind cover all the time, which meant they were losing rate of fire. And but however, Company of Heroes 2 has pretty much done away with a lot of squad AI behaviour. So I'm going to give a quick scan read to this now. I'll read it out loud, of course. Added squad AI behaviour, where individual models in squads assume varying postures whilst fighting the enemy. So this is going to give more living, breathing action. Elite squads will prefer a crouching animation for some of their members, whereas non-elite squads will drop prone to the ground. Okay. Interesting, just gives a little bit of visual disparity, seemingly. Fixed the disparity where low member squads also suffered from the most densely packed formations. Okay, so they won't now squad clump through AI, which is good. And assist each squad in their role, e.g. the new reinforced wedge formation will make paratrooper squads always have their Thompsons in the front line. Yes, that's awesome. That's so cool from an infantry combat perspective. Squad formations are now once again more fluid while the squad is moving. So that's cool. They're going to be spaced out and look more lifelike. It's going to look like a living, breathing World War II squad. Allied squads once again assign support weapons to flanks rather than the core of their formation. Oh, so cool. It just looks more realistic, and you pick up on this stuff. You honestly will, trust me. Smoke barrages. Activating smoke barrages will now only order 1 unit at a time. Okay, that's fair enough. Fuel and munitions. Increase from 200 to 250 so they can stop being spammed as much in team games. I like it. Garrisoning. Load time for buildings increased to 1 per model. So it's not instant anymore. Max load time increased to 3.25 for entire squad. Unload time. Oh, okay. So they've stopped the instant squad garrison and degarrison, which was a change happened in 2015, and this caused a big improvement in competitive play, but at a loss of realism. And I don't know quite how I feel about this. I did like the idea that you could jump out of a mortar's shot and then jump back in. It kind of added some elements of cool, competitive and micro, but I guess it wasn't that realistic. This seems like somewhere in between. They have included a max time, 3.25 seconds. 1, 2, 3. That's how long it takes to get into a building. Anyway, get on to the individual faction changes now, finally. God, this video is probably already 20 minutes long, never mind. Kubelwagen, to decrease the manpower bleed, the Kubelwagen can inflict in the early game. It could. Honestly, if you got like 3, you saw Paula do it quite a lot, 3 Kubelwagens, you could just spam them and you're not getting any manpower damage yourself, you're just inflicting it. Decrease rear armor from 4.5 to 1.6 so you can flank the Kubel and take it out. Decrease the frontal armor to 3.5. But increase the health. Okay, so the Kubel now will more consistently cause damage, which will allow you to push it away. Jagdtiger, not my area of expertise. I must admit, I will keep the changes on the screen so you can scan and read them. But I never really played with it. Never really saw it because I'm a 1v1 guy. It wasn't my thing. However, Panthers, I've seen a lot of on 2v2 recently. The arguably best non-doctrinal heavy tank in Code 2. We felt the unit offered too much benefit, so we're going to nerf it. So they've increased the pop cap from 16 to 18, so it's more rare to get 3 of them. Decreased the moving accuracy from 0.65 to 0.5. That's fair enough. It's not a massive change. Increased moving scatter, so both decreased accuracy and increased scatter. So that's a double nerf buff. So 3 nerfs in a row. That's a lot of nerfs. I'm not a big fan of quadruple nerfs, I must admit. And also, they've decreased. It's a quintuple nerf, 5 nerfs in a row. And I would just advise caution whenever there's this many nerfs. You just don't want to do that many nerfs, in my opinion. Having seen this game get patched over the past 10 years so many times, whenever I see more than 2 nerfs for a thing, I'm like, could render it kind of crap if you're not decreasing the price also. If I see this many nerfs, I expect a price decrease. That's all I'm going to say. Sturmtiger, I have seen a lot of this vehicle, got a good feel for it. Damage reduced from 640 to 580. The Abandoned Critical is reduced, so that's a buff. Abandoned Critical now only occurs from ballistic weapons, okay, so it is a bit of a buff, that, to the Sturmtiger. However, then they nerf it. So they stop the RNG BS, but then they nerf it. So from 640 to 580 on damage. Increased manpower cost. It was too cheap. 620. Fuel increased to 180, so another nerf. Another nerf in population. All randoms. Again, too many nerfs. I'm going to be honest. 2 of those nerfs is fine. My general feel, I've seen, as I say, I've seen this game get patched loads and loads and loads of times. I've always analysed it. I've always seen the effects of it, and I've always studied them. That possibly is too many. Maybe cut out one of them, maybe fuel, maybe population. It's not for me to say, but definitely not 5 nerfs in a row. Because the first 2 really aren't buffs, they're just removing RNG from the game, and that was very rare. Well, you could see the Abandoned Critical, saw it in GCS, but Wehrmacht. Elephant, damage from 320 to 300, pop cap from 20 to 22. So that is the kind of nerf you want to see. That's not too crazy, that's 2 small nerfs. It'll affect the game, but it won't cripple the vehicle. Right, so Wehrmacht Panther, unlike the OKW Panther, we like the Ost Panther or the Wehr Panther, so that's Relic using the community's word there, to be noted, Ost here, that's what the community wanted the faction to be called, is more or less in a good spot. However, the make is somewhat, the make it somewhat more, so not the best English there, more reliable in combat. The variable reload time on the main gun has been reduced. Okay, small changes, blah, blah, blah. It's not crazy. Stuka Dive Bomb. Increased AoE damage multiplier from 0.35 to 0.8. So they've made it better, but made it more expensive and removed the crit hit modifier. So they made it a bit... That's the far AoE splash damage. So they've increased the far splash damage, but it's nothing crazy. Close air support of the Stuka. Loiter... God, is my English going bad? Stuka close air support. Loiter no longer deals deflection, penetration criticals on tracked vehicles. Okay, that's fair enough. Oh, the juicy stuff now. You've made it this far. The Soviets, this is the biggest change we wanted to see. The M4C Sherman has been tied to Tier 4. Thank Lord for that. So people just can't spam them and just ignore everything. Now required mechanized armor company to be constructed. CP cost decreased to 0. Thank you. Easy. Nice changes. Penals. The Apache helicopter of Company of Heroes. The things that can do everything. Some minor adjustments to bring it more in line with cost and reduce its effectiveness as a powerful generalist unit. Fair enough. Moving cooldown from 0.5 to 0.75, so they can't fire as fast on the move, like pew, pew, pew. It's more pew, pew, pew. So this is going to decrease the rate of fire, basically, and make them, obviously, the DPS lower. Reinforced cost, yet again, increased from 25 to 27. Veterancy requirements increased, nice. Regular satchels no longer collide with vehicles, okay. Targeted anti-vehicle satchels now require PTRS upgrade, makes so much sense, because now you know you're going to see them. Targeted anti-vehicle satchels will continue to track targets even after they have moved out the range. Okay, so that's a little bit of a buff to that thing, but I suppose they were really hard to use, and now you need PTRS for them. Fixed an issue where the targeted anti-vehicle satchels would deal high damage to passengers. Okay, what? I like that. Damn it. Fixed an issue where satchels were dealing more damage to friendly infantry than enemy. That was so funny. Bullshit. No, that was not a problem. That was funny. Oh, I loved that. PTRS ready aim time reduced from 2 to 1.25 affects all PTRS variants. Dushka has proved to be exceedingly cost effective, you don't say, and thus the adjustments made to this unit will bring it more in line. Okay, but I expect to see a manpower decrease if you're doing this. Increase reinforcement costs 15 to 20, thank God. Traverse team decreased from 90 to 38. Traverse time, by the way, is the time it takes to switch targets in the arc. So suppression decreased. I've heard about this. You have to do them in strange increments. So it's gone from 4 to 30. That's fair enough. Rate of fire decreased as well. Setup time increased. Fire to aim time from 0.125. Oh, so it fires a bit faster now. Okay, so right. Ready aim time also is a buff. So they've buffed it twice there, with the ready aim times being lower. But they've nerfed it 5 times. So I'm a bit dubious of that. I expected to see a manpower decrease. It currently costs 300. Made some slight performance improvement to the Maxim. Okay, the suppression to 65. Nearby suppression to 1. Ready aim time to 2. It doesn't say what it's from, but I assume that's better. They needed to make it better. However, they finally made this Maxim bulletin, which is way too good, from 5 to 1. I always assumed that was a bug, to be honest. Conscripts, this is such a needed change, thank Lordy Jesus. To make the conscripts scale better into the mid to late game, as well as to be able to trade better with comparative axis squads such as Folks Grenadiers, the following changes have been made. Damage from 16 to 12. Right. Expect to see the accuracy increase quite a lot if that's the case. Yes, so the accuracy has increased a shite ton. Yeah, that's a massive accuracy increase. So they're going to hit a lot more, but when they hit, it's not going to be as much damage. The near range has been increased. Don't know what. BPS accuracy reduced. Okay. Molotov upgrade has been merged with the anti-tank upgrade. Beautiful change. That's great, because now they've just got... Now you're going to see much more conscript usage. That one change is a clever change. That's the kind of change I personally like to see. It's not to the numbers, it's to the functionality. It makes things more cleaner. It's a big revolutionary thing, and I'm sure it'll work quite a lot. Vet 1 added a receive accuracy modifier to 0.92, so they're now 8% less damage received, because that's the same thing, from light small arms. Molotov range replaced with increased Molotov's throw speed. I like it a lot. Reduced received accuracy modifier from 6 to 7, so that'll make them pretty much beastier. Great changes. Conscripts, mwah, beautiful changes. No problems with that. ISU 152, don't see much of it in 1v1. I'm not the best when it comes to this massive heavy tank. It seems like they're increasing the armor. The manpower is being decreased, so it's getting a little bit of a buff. Angles shatter, right. USF, the Calliope, which was doing a lot of work in 2v2. The health is now lower. It's the first thing I see at the bottom there. Removal of reload frequency. Don't know what that means. Near area of effect increased from 0.5 to... So it's actually better now. A delay between rockets fired of 0.125 added. And pop cap increased to 16. I wish they included the original, what they were. But for the general, it looks like just decent balancing. The priest, never really saw much of it. Received following changes to make it less abusive and spammable in team games. I love the language here. It must have been written by community people, I guess. Population decreased from 16 to 15. Can no longer be decrewed. However, the mid AoE has been increased quite a bit, which is a bad thing for you know, on-map artillery. The Jackson has received a slight buff to its health to allow players to be more aggressive. So health increased from 480 to 640. That's not slight, that's quite substantial. Fuel has been increased, however. The manpower has also been increased. So it's a big buff to health. I think that's not the word slight. That's significant. That's a... God, what is that? So it's 640 minus 480. And then it's, hang on, I love doing maths in the middle of trying to talk to people. This isn't, yeah, it's a third buff. I thought it was a third. It looked like a third. That's huge. You know, that's a big buff. So it has a health, fuel and manpower nerf as well. Rear echelons, riflemen, to improve rear echelons as a support unit and to prove their usefulness. Different stage of match, the following changes have been made. Smoke removed from riflemen to rear echelons. That's interesting. I like it. That'll make them, like, part of the family now. Now has access to light M7 mine at the cost of 15 munitions a mine. Yes! So we've now finally got, after 3 years, we finally got non-doctrinal mines for USF. Thank you, Relic, finally. British. We're getting there now. British trench. Now capturable by enemy troops. Huzzah! It was so obvious to me from the get-go that always should have been the case, and now it's finally the case. That won't be overly overpowered anymore. Cost reduced from 10 manpower to 3, makes sense. Can only be built in captured territory. Well, should always been the case. Firefly, interesting. Due to the Firefly's range and accuracy, when combined with the Comet, with multiple Fireflies, the combination of tank power can prove to be overly dominant. Okay, to compensate, we made the following changes. Accuracy has been nerfed. Moving accuracy has been nerfed. Tulips no longer cancel move commands upon stun when hit. Tulips now deal 33% damage versus infantry. I don't know what that's relative to. Mortar Pit now has access to smoke at Vet 0, which is cool. Vet 1 reduces smoke barrage cooldown. Okay, so that's not the nerfs that the original full balance patch was planning. Right, now we get to some QOL changes. Now, these can actually be the spiciest bits of a balance patch. Trust me, there's some really cool stuff usually down here. Fixed the issue where several vehicle units would prefer moving backwards and forwards. That sounds like the kind of thing I want to see. Fixed an issue where remanned howitzer crew members would cost more to reinforce. Fixed an issue, this is bugs. Pack 43 and £70 an hour. Prioritise vehicle permanently on. Well, sure has that been the case. I like that. That's a no-brainer. Grenadier LMG 42 now uses the proper upgrade icon. Finally! We can finally play the game again. Maxim Sustained Fire now uses the proper ability icon. The KV8 cooler, blah, blah, blah. Soviet Pack 3s no longer hit aim times compared to fixed an issue where Mr. Blobby would jump in. Dinosaurs are no longer in the game. 120mm Fireflies. Hitler's now a usable unit, etc. It was actually just bugs. It wasn't the juicy stuff it sometimes is. Regardless, thank you for watching this video. I'll now address the camera. Please tell me your thoughts. I want to hear everything you've got to hear, especially on the Yag Tigra and the ISU. I didn't know too much about those particular two units, so I want to hear your thoughts on them. But in general, if you've got any things you disagree with me on, if you think any of this is, you know, over-nerfing, over-buffing, you don't understand why Relic are doing it, please add your thoughts to this, either comments to this YouTube video or wherever you see it, if it's on kotu.org, Reddit, or the official community forums. The Relic ones. Thank you for watching this video, however. If you've never seen me before, I'm Matt or AE. Catch my strategic Zoomcasts, they're always a blast. And subscribe to me, etc. Yada yada. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.